Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Fluck here. This is the Chris Fluck Podcast, episode 18. We are at the Carl Sterner Arts Building here in Easton with Mark Nutting here. I'm owner of Jiva Fitness. 2009 Personal Trainer of the Year. Woohoo! 2016 Personal Fitness Professional Legacy Award. And you've been in the game for close to, 40 years now?
Almost 40 years.
Author of a book?
Yes,
yeah.
The Business of Personal Training.
And that's a long career. You want to get into some of that, how you kind of got into, we talked, college career into...
Well, it's funny because I have this conversation with my sons about, college and what you anticipate going in for and everything. I actually, up until, I was an athlete my whole life.
Yeah. Up
until my junior year, I was going to be a music major, heading into college. And then my music teacher at a school I moved to was not that good, and I had a great chemistry teacher. I went to college as a chemistry major. Mm. And then the chemistry department was not what I was looking for, and I really realized at that point that I loved the fitness end of the industry. But this is back in 1976, when I started college. And so there was no exercise science back then. It was really a version of physical education. But I also knew that I didn't actually want to teach in schools, because physical education in schools, which oddly at the day, it was not thought of as a real subject. And I say oddly because it's still not thought of as a real subject. It's a throwaway, as far as the school administration is typically concerned. Arts, physical education, those are the courses that get cut first. And I didn't want to play that fight the rest of your life to justify what you're doing game. So the college actually, there were 4 or 5 of us that just wanted to do the exercise science aspect of it. And they actually created a science concentration for physical education for those of us who wanted to work in the industry at some way, shape, form. And one of my first experiences really with a more technical aspect was I worked in an exercise physiology laboratory at the university. And that was a great experience. It was all the science. You're wearing a lab coat. You're doing maximum stress tests with people, all kinds of fitness assessments. But the cool part was, and what really solidified this as my career was, I also taught cardiac rehab at the time. So these people, we would take through the assessments, and then the exercise would be prescribed for them. And I would lead them through the exercise in a gymnasium, and it was back in the old days, and there was no music, and it was little.
So like machine-based stuff?
No. Around the room, body weight stuff. There was no machines, no dumbbells. It was completely body weight. And the first year I did this, there was one woman who had just had a heart attack, and she was just getting back into it and just starting to move. She was 73 or so, and I think her name was Mary. It was a long time ago. But first year, she's just walking. We're doing some reaches around the room. It's really just keeping mobility going, get going. After the first year, she said, "Look, I was really thinking about getting an exercise bike for home. What do you think about that?" And I was just like, that's so cool. Yes, absolutely get that. The more exercise you get, the more movement you get, the better. And about 6 months after that, she goes, I always wanted to learn how to swim. I think I want to start taking swimming lessons. And at that point, I'm like, rock on. Yeah. This is so cool. And you see how somebody who's had a heart attack is in their 70s and starting to make big physical changes in their lives and being more functional, now going out and taking swimming lessons, just go, this is the coolest thing ever. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what got me into the fitness realm. Yeah. And when I started, truly, you were really a sort of floor trainer. Personal training at that time, really about 1980, was not really thought of as a career. You get into club management and all that stuff. Which is how you make your living, and then you help people, but it wasn't like you're not making big money, there's not a whole career in personal training at that point. So I really have been managing as long as I've been training. But then, as the career developed, then you realize, okay, well, here's where I'm going with that. because again, the reason why I'm still in this after almost 40 years is, I was just telling Chris earlier, it's the coolest job in the world. I mean, you can make such a huge impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's just what we get off on.
And you get to hang out in athletic wear all day and get to talk to people.
Any chance I get to wear anything other than athletic wear, it's a very special moment for me.
Seriously. We talked a little bit, play some football in college.
Yep.
The training back then, what were you guys doing in terms of as being an
strength and conditioning?
Strength and conditioning.
Yeah, well, it is very funny because it was a time when a time of change.
Yeah.
Our winter workouts for football, I was an offensive guard. Yeah, bigger back then. Our winter workouts, though, were some very high intensity stuff, short workouts. But then we went on the Nautilus circuit.
Yeah.
And we did a Nautilus circuit until you puked. It was, and I never did, but there were people who were susceptible, and they would have their buckets over there just for that particularly. But it was the coaches would take you through the Nautilus circuit, so it was very, isolated muscle training.
Yeah.
Very different from what we do nowadays, and it was also an era when I remember. One of my classmates in college was on the Olympic team, 1980 Olympic team for women's shot put, and she had to fight the university to be able to use the weight room because women weren't supposed to use the weight room. So that era.
So that was kind of in that transition point too. I mean, Nautilus is fairly new, or no? Late 60s, 70s? Like what?
Oh, they were running around mid 70s. Mid 70s is when they really started.
And that ran in
Ellington.
Early 90s or something? Like when do you think the machine-based stuff started to kind of phase out a little bit?
It's still not phasing out. I mean, you look at the equipment companies and you'll see the huge equipment companies. You look at big gyms, they have huge amount of equipment, and some club models, not I want to say required, but are based on machine stuff. When you go to a Planet Fitness, where they don't want people doing crazy things and lifting free weights as much. So they have a limitation on how much weight you can lift, and it's all machine based. So from a fitness standpoint, it's still very, very big.
Yeah.
But from a functional standpoint, we probably started changing. I would have to say we're mid-late 90s is when I think the shift really started happening. To kind of go, this is not really the way we should be doing this. I mean, I had a couple certifications, and I remember it was ACE particularly, American Council on Exercise certification, where everything had to be done in neutral spine, and you never would rotate. Rotating was bad.
Yeah.
And you would never, it's always 90 degree this, 90 degree that, and it's when I started to recognize the National Strength and Conditioning Association and what they were doing with sports conditioning, just going, this is counterintuitive. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I ended up going more with the National Strength and Conditioning Association and what they were doing, and then trying to bring that to trainers, teach trainers that version.
When did you get involved with the Strength and Conditioning Association?
Mid to late 90s.
So then from, let's just say the point, like the evolution, say, of your training, methodology from 1980 to like 1995-ish, what type of stuff were you doing with clients when you were working with people? Was it that machine-based stuff primarily?
Predominantly machine-based stuff, yeah.
The Nautilus stuff was pretty big, so putting them through a workout, was it total body, or was it like a bodybuilding split, or a little bit of everything?
Oh, for the most part, there were some people, in personal training, of course, it also depends on how frequently they can work with you and how, if they can afford to work with you.
How about your personal training then? You're for yourself. Like, what were you doing?
Oh, for me?
Yeah, let's go that route then. Because you were the expert.
Yeah.
Well, what were you doing for yourself?
I think I did a little everything. I mean, since my background was strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a strength and power athlete.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to move away from that.
So anything over 5 reps was endurance?
Yeah, not quite so much. I mean, honestly, if you ask my clients now, I'm a 12 rep guy. But what would I do? I mean, I would get down there. I probably worked as a, of course you'd cycle yourself in different rep ranges and everything else, periodization. But I would think of myself as, always working for strength, probably up until about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
What led you out of that route? Or
I'm sorry?
What led you to change that thought process?
I got old.
It
was actually, it's funny. I teach a class. We teach a program, or we teach classes here that are licensed products from a company called MOSA. Okay. Back in the day, it was actually called Body Training Systems. So as a group fitness entity, is a class that we teach which is called Group Power, and Group Power is an hour-long, head-to-toe weightlifting class, but more on the muscle endurance kind of thing. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself as I started teaching it, and it was mostly, to help the program. It helps if group fitness is classically, a woman's, realm. It's always tougher to get guys into group fitness. And so to get guys to come into group fitness, it helps if a guy is teaching it. So I actually started teaching it just to help out the program, and then bit by bit realized this is a really kind of cool way of doing it. It's, in spite of it being, a muscle endurance thing, you are maxing out. As people come in, it's like there's a leg track. And even the current leg track, we're doing 65 reps, pretty much nonstop. Yeah. So in theme and variation to keep it interesting, different paces and all that. But within the 4 or 5 minutes, you're doing a ton of reps. And it's really about all you can do. So for my ego, you always pushed yourself to the limit. Strength-wise, if you're doing 5 reps, it's going to be 5 reps. Yeah. But now, you spend 5 minutes at it. There's still 5 minutes of, push yourself through this. And I gradually found myself going, I was going to do here. I'll do the teaching the class, and then I'll do my real workout afterwards. But then realized I just don't need to be that strong as I used to be. Yeah.
I think they're strong enough. Well, strong enough is, I think, good enough.
Yeah, there is a strong enough for a lot of what we do. Particularly as we age, and I've had a number of injuries. I've had back surgery. I've had a shoulder replacement. And for the record, I'm 61. So it's do I need to squat and deadlift 500? No, not so much. And so for my focus to be there doesn't need to be there, and I kick back a little bit in the sense that, I am strong enough to do anything I need to do, and plenty of buffer beyond that. So I don't need to work harder at that, but the conditioning in general is something we always want to continue working as hard as we can at.
I just have a conversation, I think, in a previous episode with, the guy's probably in his low 40s, he's a firefighter in New York City, and he's always, his low back's bothering him, this, that, shoulders achy, and I'm like, stop, you're good enough, man. You don't need, if you put an extra 10 pounds on your deadlift, who cares? You're already at a good point right now. You really want to grind out, for another 4 to 5 weeks just to get a 5 or 10 pound jump, and then end up with a bad back for 4 weeks or something out of it, So I feel the same, shoulder issue for me. I'm I'm just not going to press. I'm just not going to bench press heavy. It's not worth it.
We talked about this a little bit before, when to kick back and when not to. Yeah. And you're going, I think as we put in our years of training, hopefully we start to recognize. Right. Remember the last time I pushed through that and I was laid up for a month versus listening to it, backing off, and maybe it's a day or two, that I have to kick back, or even a week, but it doesn't, I haven't screwed myself up. Yeah. And to listen to your bodies and know when you can push through, know when to work around, because sometimes it's, angles and grips and things like that can just make a difference. Just change your grip, change this. But it's really that listening to your body is an important thing. And a lot of old, I don't want to say old, well, some are old, but long-time athletes have a tough time making that transition of going, you know what, I don't need to be pushing myself or lifting 2 tons of weight in a single lift,
I see that with, I coach wrestling for a little bit, and those guys are like always, it's a pretty good program where I coach, so there's some very talented kids there, and as they get older too, everything's just kind of go, and they don't know how to wind down. And I don't watch too much of like mixed martial arts, but I know I'll listen to, people talk, and the guys that have that mindset, they're the ones breaking down, and they're not able to compete. They're pulling out of fights because they don't know how to step back. They're just, banging their head off the wall constantly and trying to make improvements, and next thing you know, they're losing fights and getting out of it. So so I guess you got to know yourself a little bit. But with there's also a point too where I think you do need to kind of push through some days. So it's like
psychologically?
So you guys finding that fine line. You don't want to be like, I don't feel like lifting today.
And the conversation I have with people is you got to listen to your body, and you have to, it's actually interesting with new clients or people new to exercise because they're not used to having fatigue anyway, and they going, ooh, I feel something, and it can't be good. It's not it's not a joyous feeling. We're going, well, no, that's okay. And some of that's okay. And pushing a little bit harder. Once they get used to the idea that, okay, this is an acceptable feeling. We talk about the levels of discomfort. And, the conditioning stuff, the training has a level of discomfort that is desirable. And you just have to be able to differentiate between this is fatigue discomfort versus pain discomfort.
Do you put it on a scale, like a number scale?
No, more of a flavor scale. It really is. Is it sharp? Is it, are you achy? Is it in the muscle? Is it in the joint? Where is this occurring? Some people go, well, I feel like, kind of like down my arm. Okay, we have radiating pain. Okay, this is something to be concerned about. It's not like, in here I feel that, it's really fatigued or something, or really uncomfortable. That's, it's getting them to start to perceive the different feelings, and know the difference themselves.
I kind of forgot about that aspect because you might work with some people that are fairly new, and you'd say, hey, why don't you just do this, see how many reps you could do. Then they'll get to 5 and it looks pretty easy, and then they'll stop at 6 and you're like, oh, like you were expecting 12 to 15.
Right.
But once they got that little point of discomfort, then they were like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, oh, like I forgot to tell them maybe do a few more past that point or whatever, but it's tough to navigate that. So that's experience though with the individual too.
Right.
They learn.
We also drill in, that form is the most important thing. Form that keeps us working what we're trying to work and keeps us safe. Second, then working the range of motion. The more range of motion, active range of motion we have, the better. And that's really about the mobility of the joint, not passive. Do
you do any assessments or leading into that?
Assessments is an interesting thing.
Like the FMS, for example, I've used that before.
Yeah, I don't. I'm familiar with the FMS, but
I don't put. Maybe I don't know enough about it to put more value in it, but I don't know. I use it and I'm like, okay, thanks.
Some people swear by it, and the people who make sense to me who do functional movement screen, the people who make sense to me are the ones who have a really good understanding of the assessments, and then just modify and tweak and do and to make it. It's great because you can assess a ton of people at the same time, or in a short period of time. But at the same time, it's such a generalization, and it doesn't cue you into the little things. And I do one assessment. I do one assessment with them, and it's a squat. And I just, I line them up in front of the mirror and said, go ahead and go down slowly, give me your biggest squat, and then just come back up slowly. And from that point, whether there's a valgus shift in the knee, or, if they're off center with the hips, or what else is going on, at what point does the back start to round. No weight, body weight. But it tells you so much in one glance. And
so that individual then, just because you're in a group setting, are you going to try to modify during the group class, or do you want to? Well, we don't
assess before the group class.
So they're coming in, they know what's going on. They got to be kind of ready to go.
In their waiver, it's really not just a waiver. It's a waiver of informed consent that every new person coming in signs. But at the same time, it's also a quick Parkour. So, and the conversation is, do you have anything that I should be aware of? And we'll make that immediate going, okay, I won't necessarily show them everything that they need, but if I got a couple minutes, I'll say, okay, here's where you want to pay attention to. Remember, you can modify as you need, shorten the range of motion, pay attention to the form first and foremost. Don't feel like you have to keep going. Stop if you want to. Breathe, relax. First classes are a discovery time. What is this whole class about?
Yeah.
You know, it's not meant to be your best workout. I'm not a fan of, let me get in there and kill somebody to go, that's how hard we play it here.
Yeah.
You know, because that's really not our clientele anyway.
You're in it for the long haul, so you
Yeah.
know, those type of workouts don't allow you to continue each and every day.
Right.
With, you know, let's say you do have somebody that has like some knee pain and they can't get into a deep squat, but they're a little bit hesitant. They know they might need to see a doctor, but they want to kind of push it off a little bit and wait it out. Do you modify and have them try to train their legs in a different manner? Do you work an assisted type situation?
Well, I
to take
mean,
some
you know,
pressure,
we have a free consultation here.
Yeah.
So, you know, our first guideline, you know, if people come to us and say, you know, I want to take classes, maybe do personal training, what should I do first? First thing you should really do is sit down with us for half an hour. We'll go through the medical health history, your goals, your lifestyle, all that stuff, and really come up with a game plan and make a recommendation. For people that do have issues, we'll more than likely would recommend, you know, let's get together and do a little bit of personal training. Make sure that you can modify or know how to modify and know what positions you should be in, you know, one-on-one before we get you back in the class or get you into the class. Right. So we don't typically do, I mean, we may, you know, the standard for if they were just coming into class, you know, signing the waiver, 2-minute talk with them just before they start the class would really be, you know, say they have some knee problems. Okay, look, modify as you need, choose, you know, do the range of motion at which you can comfortably do, you know, and stop whenever you need to stop. And from that point, you know, we'll let them take the class and see how they did, talk about it, and going, yeah, I've had a lot of pain in this, or it hurts me. You know, some people will say, we have a couple people with strong knee issues, and they limit their range of motion. And some movements like a lunge, if we're doing a lunge, they can't do a lunge. Okay, can you modify that, do a short stride lunge or a crouch, as we'll call it? Yeah, that doesn't feel bad. Okay, do that instead. Yeah. So there's a little bit of, we'll give them more options. We'll try to give them options up front, but then more options once we hear the feedback.
That's cool. I mean, I kind of a similar mindset, because you don't want to tell them not to come, obviously. You know,
no. Yeah, that's the worst thing you can do is not do something.
Yeah, just figure something out, and you just got to do what you can. And ultimately, they'll make a decision if they want to get it fixed or get
Well, yeah, I mean,
stuff,
and
you know?
anytime there's anything chronic going on or you know, not always, you know, the guideline, if you're taking a certification thing, is you're going, oh, something hurts, refer out.
Yes.
You know, refer them to a physician. Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
That's what the FMS tells you to do with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, do the shoulder clearing thing. If you have anything other than normal, go see a professional before you lift. And it's like, we're sending a lot of people away probably because there's some sort of impingement, who knows what. But
well, so, actually, I don't know if you're aware or not, but the Parkour has changed.
All right.
It's now Parkour Plus. And that's meant to be more lenient than, you know, known disease, you know, or symptoms and known disease. That's what Parkinson's. The Parkour is about existing disease or symptoms, finding out that. But now even with that, it's going, okay, this, then it branches off. Well, can you do this? Can you do this? And it's not necessarily go see a doctor. So we look at that and really say, okay, this is a chronic thing, you need to have that checked out. The big thing about getting it checked out, and this is the same conversation I have with them, is that if you get a diagnosis, then you know whether what you're doing is creating more damage or not. And you know, if it's arthritis, you're really not creating more damage to do it. The guideline really is push through as much as you can tolerate. And that way you stay as functional as long as you can. But before I had my shoulder done, I had shoulder pain for a decade.
Yeah.
You know.
What brought it on, do you think?
I know. Yeah, football. I dislocated it 3 times playing football in college, and then had surgery back then. And then.
How was that? I mean, we're talking late 70s, so.
Yeah, it was late 70s.
Nasty scar, or
and what's that?
like a nice looking scar from that one.
Oh. Honestly, it's a zipper.
Oh yeah.
That's the old one.
So the old one.
This one is a nice, pretty one. You can't see it on camera, but trust me.
Might want to zoom in. You can see it's like a shark got him from the old one.
The old one is the classic Frankenstein, you know, zipper look. And the new one, they just glued together. They didn't even stitch it. Wow. They just glued the skin together, and it's a pretty little line. Yeah. It's nice. So and the surgery didn't work, so it was chronic dislocation
Yeah.
through the years, and just that aggravated it. But through that whole time, I'm lifting and working out and doing everything else, which is the best thing I could have done. You know, and so depending on what the diagnosis is, you can either work out, work around, or then you have to wait. Maybe it's, you know, if they have a soft tissue injury, you're not working through a soft tissue injury.
Yeah.
Take the time off, let it heal. And depending on what the other injuries might be or things that are occurring, okay, well, you know, people have torn their rotator cuff, but they're not going to have it operated on. Well, you can still work with that.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be uncomfortable for a while until it gets stronger and all that, and then you'll have less discomfort. So it really depends what it is, but the diagnosis and the importance of that is really knowing what you're dealing with,
Yeah.
so you don't make it worse.
Right. I do want to talk too, like we were talking about the group stuff, and we talked about kind of the niche that you're working with men's fitness after 50. You said you wanted to be a male just to kind of show other males to get in there. So two things about that demographic. One, it might be like a stubborn demographic potentially, in the sense that, you know, they've done
Old
what
set in
they've
your
done,
ways, guys.
kind of, I think. So how do you kind of encourage that? Because I see it too. A lot of, you know, the females seem to be more likely to go and work out at a gym, whereas, you know, they bring their husband once or twice and they're just kind of not feeling the group thing. And,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
you try, because I think sometimes the wives might be, you know, hammering through the workout a little bit easier. You know, it's tough first time coming in, and it kind of discourages them too. So, like, how do you kind of navigate that to kind of encourage some people to come in, not worry about the ego, not worry about stuff like that?
And
you know?
we have that, you know, that discussion with, you know, for everybody really.
Yeah.
If they're taking group fitness, the not worry about the ego thing is, you know, nobody lifts 60 reps, you know, or, you know, to 5 minutes. You know, what I say is this is not 3 sets of 10 for legs.
Yeah.
This is 5 minutes of legs, you
Right.
know. And so
it's as many reps as you can.
you
in 5.
cannot, well, no, it's all paced to music.
Oh, right.
So it really is, and that's actually a key point of the whole thing is it moves with the music, which both, it actually makes you work harder because in the pacing, it continues to drive you. Sometimes it's faster and you got to work faster with the music.
Yeah.
And so it can make you work a lot harder to have the music, to work with it. But you know, it's not 3 sets of 10. Do not think you're going to load this up like you do it, you know, in a normal workout,
Yeah.
the bar. So you take the bar light. Here are recommendations to start off with. Again, it's not meant to be your best workout, so start on the light side because it's going to hit you quick. You know, how many repetitions we do.
Especially when you're deconditioned.
Well, yeah, and
You know,
deconditioned, I mean,
first day
really,
come
you
in.
know, the bars themselves, actually, that bar right there, that with the red collars,
Yeah.
go ahead and pick it up.
Yeah.
It's like 2 pounds.
2, right, yeah.
You know, so that's from there.
So you're going to tell a man? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
He's
actually,
like 2-pounder and his wife's using the 22. No.
well, but the fact is, you know, you have complete control of the weight.
Yeah.
You know, is the idea that you don't. It's not like even starting with you know the 45-pound bar. You know, you're starting with a 2-pound bar,
Yeah.
and you can choose to have as much or as little as you want on the bar at the time. And there are recommendations for men. Essentially, you know, for like a warm up, the warm up is typically about 20 pounds, you know, on the bar. But body weight for somebody deconditioned is going to be big anyway,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we may say that, you know, just keep that lighter weight
Yeah.
through the whole class. You know, you go to legs, usually you increase it by 50% or more. Keep the same weight.
Yeah.
You know, just to feel the class out. It's not meant to be your best workout. It's meant to be an exploration of here's what this class is all about. And then you can start to go, depending on how you feel afterwards, you know, sore, not sore, that felt easy. Start to bit by bit go up in these things. Now, that's, you know,
Do you have to pull people back?
Yes.
Because I know, you know, that person comes in and in the moment they're feeling good, but you know they're going to be sore for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And you got to be like, you probably should only do 10 reps today.
Right.
But they want to do 3 sets of 10.
Well, you
or
must
4.
have done this with personal training too. I mean, my first day with somebody who hasn't worked out in a while.
Yeah.
It goes, you know, it is movement exploration. As much for me to see how they move as to them to just go through bigger ranges of motion than
Yeah.
they used to. And, you know, sometimes they'll go, well, that's it? Oh yeah, that's it. And then they'll come back and go, man, I was sore for days.
Yeah.
Not anticipating. But they want to do more because they feel good in the moment.
Right.
And you just go, no, you haven't done this in a while. Trust me, take the time.
Yep.
We have plenty of time to ramp it up.
Yeah. And I always like too, there's always some fillers too that, you know, like somebody might not get too sore from holding a push-up position.
Yeah.
So, you know, you make them get up and down a few times in between stuff. They'll get out of breath, and I don't know, just try to find some different ways to fatigue them where without knowing they're gonna be sore for
Right.
for days, because you do some split squats or some lunges or something like that, and everybody's legs and glutes seem to get pretty tender the next day. So.
Again, they're not. The society in general is we're sitting and if we're exercising, particularly the over 50 kind of population, if we're exercising, going, ooh, I went for a walk, it's not the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
And more, of course, the research is that the strength training, that kind of thing, even power training, as we get older, is really important. And, but you gotta work your way up there. But from walking and sitting to doing a lunge or squat, that's a whole different range of motion.
Yeah.
And anytime you change that range of motion, you're going to be potentially sore.
Yeah. So I remember reading this in the past too. People as you age, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever it may be, they start moving slower because they don't have that power to kind of generate themselves to move themselves forward. So, there's definitely a place for all that type of training. You're not going to get that from walking, probably.
Well, actually, there is they are now saying that their level of power is a great predictor of longevity.
Right.
And of course, if you work with the older clients, I have older clients that have had in the past that you sit there and you go, okay, well, we're going to jump over here and do this, and a little bit of a jumping thing. Mm-hmm. It's not that we're not doing depth jumps or anything else, or we're jumping to a box. We're just doing jump on, jump off, or jump over here, jump over there, stabilize. And it's amazing how people stopped jumping. You hit a certain age and you're going, I just don't jump. Mm-hmm. You're going, well, okay, we need to do a little bit of that. Yeah. A little bit of power work. Yeah. I had a client with muscular dystrophy, and we talk about power training. And for him, power is different for everybody. I'm not afraid to do a Tabata with everybody because they're working at a more intense level for that period of time, more intense for them, at their level. So it doesn't have to be, the athlete level version, for a Tabata. Yeah. It has to be something more challenging for them, whatever that level is. But for this particular client, we are living in New York City, and for him, power training was being able to cross the street before the light changes. Because he had trouble, getting across the street. Yeah. So we would work on some power stuff just so he could, get across the street quickly.
And that's just one. That's pretty much the purpose of training. I feel like just to make life easier. I remember what are you training for? It's for life.
Right.
So you want to kind of live long and live healthy. And I want to. Well, there's two things. I think I want to start with this one just to kind of throw this at you quick. You brought up earlier about the physical education. You didn't want to teach that at all growing up, and how that stuff's getting cut at the schools. But then as we get older now, people in their 40s don't even get into a deep squat ever. Mm-hmm. Where I feel like when you look back at some standards from the 60s, I remember seeing it was probably the FMS stuff, to be honest. Military guy with a rifle in a deep squat, propped up on his knees. Guys can't. I don't want to say guys and generalize, but a good portion of the population can't even come close to getting into that position. So, you're talking about a population in their 50s and above. You think it all starts back then too? In terms of what we're doing with kids right now.
Starting with our kids. You've seen the classic thing, and there's a classic meme out there, of the baby who's sitting in that perfect squat, just legs, right in the butt to the ground, knees perfect, chest up, all that stuff, and they just go, look, the baby's doing it perfectly. Well, we do condition ourselves out of that. Yeah. I had a conversation just yesterday that one of our clients was talking about. One side of her family is married into this Korean family, mm-hmm. and that the father always sits in this deep squat. That's kind of his he'd sit there, read a newspaper in a deep squat. And you're going, well, culturally, it's different. And what that shows really is when we stop doing it, we stop being able to do it. And we are trained out of that. Yeah.
And did you ever see the stuff too where you talked about or just power in general, or even leg strength equaling longevity? But there's even stuff too. There's a lot of guys just recommending just sit in a deep squat, but they want the mobility at the ankles, knees, and hips. Mm-hmm. If you're able to display that as you age and stuff like that, your life is you're probably going to feel better. Number one, but
one of the things is going from a sit to a stand with as little help as possible.
Right, you score it if your hand touches.
If you can do it, one hand touch it, it counts against you. If you can do it with no hands, you get score so much. And of course, to be able to do that with no hands requires a huge amount of mobility in the hips, knees, ankles.
Huge, and some lower body strength too. Just to be able to get out of that position. Well, there's people that can't even sit in that position to start. So it is super important. How about just active stretching? I have a guy that I work with. we get along really well, but sometimes we go different routes with stuff because
Yeah.
And I agree with him totally in the sense of like stretch a muscle and then use it in that new range of motion, like a dynamic style stretching is important. But I also think there's a place for, like I did yoga twice a week up the road here this was before we had our child, so probably 2 years ago, almost for a year. And I felt it made a big time difference. And that's holding static stretching and stuff like that. And I think there's a place for that too. So, in terms of just working with personal training clients, say, I mean, or even in your personal life, how about your personal life? Let's say you're going to get warmed up. You do some dynamic stuff, or do you how does the stretching fit in, or is there?
So here's my confession. My confession is that I don't work out other than teaching the classes that I teach now.
Right. So you'll warm up with them, and then you go.
I warm up with them.
And then you're active. We talked about this town you live in. You're walking everywhere if you can.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Well,
So
but
you're moving.
that. But I mean, the style of the classes we do, again, they're choreographed. They work with the music.
Yeah.
So we cue the classes verbally. We don't call anybody out, but we cue by saying, okay, make sure your chest is up, make sure you're doing this, make sure that you shift your weight back, we're hinging at the hips, describing what all that is verbally, but we're also showing and doing the whole thing at the same time. So we literally do the class with them.
Yes.
And we also, we also take it to our personal limits as well, because with the theory that they need to know that you don't hit this point and just cruise through it. I did a class this morning, that weightlifting class, group power, and I hit a certain point in the shoulders, and they're just going, I haven't got it. I don't today. This is all I got. Yeah. So I did not do the full movement. I say, here's how you modify, and it hits us all, which makes certainly the instructor seem just as real, a person. They have a tough time struggling. They're working hard. Yeah. So I need to work hard as well. That's how the effort level it can go to. But so I literally, I teach the classes I teach, and that's my workout. Right. So it has a built-in warm-up. Yep. As well as a reconditioning recovery.
What's that look like?
The recovery?
Yeah.
It's active mobility. Dynamic mobility, a little bit of static stretching.
Yep. Well, I think if you do the stuff to full range of motions, you're getting the mobility work in there too. I
think the big thing is, I think the big thing with the stretching in general is that you don't want to have just a static stretch without the application of strength through it. You can do it separately, but then when you turn to the exercises, you want to make sure you're using that. So it's like a Romanian deadlift is a great exercise that's both range of motion and strength. For the posterior chain. And you can get more flexible with it, but you can also do hamstring stretches to gain greater mobility and then use it in the RDL.
But then you potentially don't have the strength or stability to kind of control it if you get too flexible.
That's why I'm saying it needs to be doubled up. You need to you need to either work the strength with the range of motion, all in one exercise, like the RDL can be, or you could do the static stretching. There's what they call a zone of inadequacy, which is, if I can do a split, or I can if I can hold my foot up here, but then I let go and try to hold it up on my own and it drops down here. This zone that I could not control is the zone of inadequacy. The bigger that is, the less stable the joint is.
So you want to stay out of that zone.
You want to strengthen that range. So either work the strength up there or stop stretching up there. So. You want to limit that either by bringing the strength up with that range of motion, or not by forcing the range of motion anymore. Don't get more flexible if you're not getting stronger through that range. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It's almost like the good enough thing again. You're flexible enough. Yeah. You're okay there. I want some strength, whatever.
I was a dancer and a martial artist. So I had every split there was. Right. Do I work that flexibility now? Am I quite as flexible as I used to be? Not so much.
Yep.
But, do I stretch it out much? Not so much.
Well, you probably have decades of flexibility training.
I'm still more flexible than 95% of the guys. I'll say guys.
Right, go with the guys.
Go with the guys. Women, I don't know.
And then other stuff too, like we're talking about this guy demographic who might as well just keep hammering them a little bit. Work with some males of that age, everybody seems to be pointing towards their belly, want to lose this, things of that nature. What kind of challenges do you see, like the after 50 population? Just things start changing in regard to what they're doing. Diet-wise and
well, yeah, and that's diet's always a tough one. I'm sure you know this. The best thing you could do diet-wise is to start to journal what they're doing, write it down, and and part of, as the technology gets better, and there's some great, MyFitnessPal is a great tracking app that we'll use with clients, here, track your nutrition. But nobody likes doing that. Nobody says, there are only few people who are those real, I'm into this.
Yeah.
Most of them are just going, oh, no, I didn't do such a good job. Okay, well, you try to create mindfulness of what you're doing. I don't care if you use an app. I don't care if I know how many calories. Just start writing it down because it makes you more mindful. And sometimes that's the bigger point is to have them, it's like, my kids did this, still do this really a little bit. But would take up a big bag of pretzels and sit down and watch TV when they were kids, and I'd look down and the whole bag's gone. And you're going, you just ate that whole bag of pretzels. And so the thing becomes becoming more mindful. Okay, put it in a bowl, leave the bag in the kitchen, go ahead and take the bowl in with you in the other room, and then if they're mindlessly eating it, then they're at least done after the serving. Yeah. And I found out they were never going back for the seconds. So it is, whatever you can do with adults are the same thing. It's that mindless aspect, eating mindlessly. So if you can be more focused on what you're doing, and even if it's not the quantity, you're sitting there and you're just writing down Snickers bar. Okay. Yeah. You know what you're doing.
You're not going to feel good about that.
Well, you're not going to feel good about it. And it does make you think about it, as opposed to just here's my automatic.
The Dan John books and articles. Dan John. Yeah. He Eat Like an Adult. I remember he wrote one of his books, and I think it's perfect in the sense you probably shouldn't be eating a Snickers bar or Doritos or Lucky Charms sometimes. So just kind of like eat like a grown up, and you might be okay if you're able to do that.
Okay, yeah.
Or the ice cream, the soda, things of that nature. So he likes to simplify things.
Right, and it doesn't have to be that complex. So getting back to your question, which was really the older population and motivating them and getting them to realize that sometimes it really is where are you? Yeah. It is like I had a 40-year-old woman I was working with who, this is how she discovered what her physical disability was, and she was of the kind that if it hurt, she stopped doing it. So she stopped doing a lot. But she's 40 years old, not overweight, and as an assessment, I have people squat. All I had to do, is just sit in a chair and stand. Just stand up from a chair. Yeah. And she put her hands down on her thighs and push herself up. Okay, now put your hands out here. She'd give a little heave-ho and stand. Okay, now just touch my hands first. So I had her lean into the position. Just stand. And she couldn't. So she didn't have the leg strength to get out of a chair. Yeah. Which it blew her mind. She actually broke into tears and couldn't imagine that she was not strong enough to do that. But you got to kind of let them know where they are and kind of go, this is why it's important. This is why we need to back it off and really start to work these things. But I've had guys come to me who want to accomplish something. I had one guy who wanted to be able to get on his paddleboard. I'm fine if I get on from the dock and get on the paddleboard, as long as I don't fall off, I'm okay. Yeah. But if I fall off, I can't get back on the board and stand. So you work on those mobility and strength things just to get them on that thing. So it can be very specific or it can be general. Just getting off the ground. Again, the ground standing is a huge thing that people lose the ability to do. Yeah. How does that feel? Do it a couple times. Just tell me what's the challenges there. And they're out of breath and. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you wouldn't think it. But even like with the diet stuff, the physical exploration kind of thing and learning, like you pretty much have to do that with the other 23 hours of your day too, in the sense that you do your journal, like you learn a lot potentially about yourself there. Yeah. So I mean, I guess it just any kind of behavior change situation is just going to have to come down to nudge that individual into the right direction, and they need to learn it, I guess, on their own instead of just kind of. Well, and here's an important thing I think for trainers in general is that a lot of trainers say do this without the explanation of why it's important to do this. Why are we doing this particular exercise? As well, I don't do presses with anybody lying down. They're all standing. Yeah. The reason we have a cable system here. I'm not a big machine person, but the cable offers we can change the angles that we're pulling from. And to do a standing press or standing row, is much more real life. We're not sitting in a chair doing those things.
Yeah.
And if I'm standing, I have to brace, I have to use my core, I have to do all this stuff. And so if they ask why I'm not doing a bench press, they're going, well, the bench press is, great for doing a bench press.
Powerlifting.
And there's a reason that that it's not important for football players to bench 600 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you stand them up and put them in a field and they can't push 600 pounds worth. So it's that standing is that's the strength we want. The full body controlled, being able to move furniture across the floor or pull this across the floor.
Yeah.
So that explanation to them then makes it real for them, and they can take that and start to apply it to their life. I have a lot of clients who'll come back and say, I was lifting rocks this weekend, and we talked about how you do that form-wise and keep safe, and it was in my head. I could hear your voice.
Yeah.
Which is
That's awesome.
I love hearing that
it's
from
like
them.
getting people, it's just getting people ready for life, man. I like it. Yeah, it's awesome. And then what about goal setting too? Does that fit into your kind of process here with
There's always
like personal training in group? Is it more for the personal training clients?
We're a small facility and we're very personal, and that was our goal. Is we know everybody in our place, and we always have conversations with them before and after, how they're feeling, what's going on, challenges, and sometimes that leads to let's sit down and have a conversation about it. Do a little personal training, do a little nutritional coaching, whatever that is, depending on their goals. But the goal setting is a huge part of this, because it has to be really specific and SMART goals, specific, measurable, all that. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that I want to lose weight. Okay, well, why is that important? How much weight do you want to lose? Okay, I want to lose 40 pounds. Why? Well, because I want to be healthier. Okay, that's good. And what else? What does healthier mean to you? Well, it means I want to be able to do it. You peel that back until it gets really personal. Yeah. Actually, one of the best versions I had was a trainer who said, I want to get in better cardiovascular condition. Okay, what does that mean? I want to be able to, and through discussion, I want to be able to run faster. Why is that important? I want to be able to, run a road race. Okay, how far is the road race? So far. And okay, well, now, does it matter where you place in that? He goes, yes, I want to do really well in it. Why is that important to you? Well, okay, my family, we always do this road race. I always come in dead last, and I don't want to come in dead last. Now you have a personal, motivator right there. Okay, we're going for that family kick their butt thing.
Yep. So you just ask why until you get down to the bottom, keep peeling it away.
There was a motivational interviewer that I listened to the presentation he did, and he just said, why I'm like a 2-year-old. Why? Until you get to that point of going, okay, there's the meat.
Well, when you talked about being able to explain the why to people, I thought about just coaching. And I talked about that too, is like if you're with middle school age, first off, younger kids, middle school age, high school kids, if you put, I used to write the programs up for the football team, and I had to have the why answer for everything in there, because I knew somebody was going to ask, why are we doing that? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? So you had to you just had to make sure they always had a reason, because somebody's going to be questioning you, and you needed to be
right.
And there needs to be a reason for it to be.
And the buy-in is better. The worst thing as a trainer and manager of clubs, the worst thing one of the things I hated most was why I'd go to somebody on the training floor who was doing something I wasn't sure what they were doing or why they were doing it. I'd ask them, that's interesting. Why are you doing this exercise? And they go, I don't know. My trainer gave it to me.
Yeah.
And they go, well, you should know why you're doing it.
Yeah. But you're in a small situation here now. You managed. We didn't touch on this yet, but when you were in New York City, you were managing how many trainers?
I was teaching. I wasn't managing as much, but I was in charge of the educational program for, I think it was 1,700 at the time.
Wow.
Trainers.
So you were responsible for
a lot.
Yeah. Good and bad, maybe.
Well, making sure that they were as good a trainer as they could be.
And that was that in the 90s?
Yes, up until that was in the 90s, late 90s.
Big club.
Well, it's New York sports clubs, so it's every New York sports clubs, Boston sports clubs, Philadelphia sports clubs, Washington sports clubs. That system, TSI, Town Sports International.
Got it.
So yeah, a lot of. They were big clubs in general, but not all of them were very big.
And then from that point, then you transitioned. You moved up to Maine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
New York City had some children, right? You had some young kids. You were telling us
Had
before.
had some kids,
You were
and they
thinking
just
about-
didn't know how to raise them in Manhattan. So it was either, frankly, it was either move here, which is where my wife's family, some of my wife's family lived, or to Maine, which is where my whole family lived and her mother. So we went with the majority of where the family was. So
Yeah.
we moved to Maine for 12, 13 years.
That's where you went to college?
I actually grew up in Maine.
Okay.
So I actually swore never to go back after I graduated. I went to the University of Maine, in fact, and then moved to Boston right afterwards. Said, I'm never going back to Maine. But when it came to raising our kids and all that, from Manhattan, it's a better call. Okay. And so we were up there and ended up moving back down here to help take care of Heather's father, my wife's father, at the end of his life.
So with all of that, then moving around, whatever, which also, you're raising kids in these, say you're up in Maine, and part of the reason you wanted to move there, get out of the city atmosphere. So you and your wife, pretty active physically. I always like to try to figure out some parenting questions here because I have a little one. So we talked about it too earlier. Super active, super fit parents. What was your thought process when you first had your children? In the sense, how active? Like, how are we going to handle this thing in terms of physical activity?
So we already talked about this, just so you guys know. So he's putting me on the spot. I thought I had a couple football players, two boys, and my wife's father was a big man. He was 6'3", 6'4", and I'm 6'2", and so we got big genes in there. I got two football players. I'm so psyched. I want to be that coaching parent. I'm going to do all that, and then our kids were completely inactive. They took swimming lessons at the club I was working at. They had an outdoor pool, and they took swimming lessons every summer, mostly because I wanted to make sure that they were swimmers because I'm not, but I wanted them to feel comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. They have perfect bodies for swimmers, and my older son went for the swim team 1 year and was completely bullied and hated the whole competitive aspect of it, and so it was just a horrible experience for him. Neither of the kids like anything competitive. They do like swimming, they just don't do a whole lot of it. But as far as any other, so they do no competition like that. And as far as any other physical activity, it's nothing right now.
But when they were like 7, 8, 9, 10,
there is. The story I did do is, you sit there and trying to look for something for them to do. Mm-hmm. And one of the presentations I do these days is actually parkour for kids.
Yeah.
And it actually, I tell the story, which is really, I had a large LinkedIn group of fitness entrepreneurs that I started, and we had about 10,000 people in the group. And I put the question to the group and just said, okay, what are people doing for outdoor programming for the clubs? And you get the classic things that we're doing an outdoor boot camp, we're doing a triathlon training, we're doing a couch to 5K, so it's basically running and indoor boot camps. Well, and this one person says, we're doing parkour. I'm like, what the heck is parkour?
Yeah.
So, they explained it quickly, and then I'm looking it up on the internet and coming up with videos, and actually, parkour and free running have the same kind of origins. Free running actually gets into a little bit more tricking like skateboarding. Parkour is very point A to point B, actually David Bell, who's one of the founders of the new movement of parkour, he describes it as a military or as a martial art, because you're either chasing somebody or you're being chased. It's getting from point A to point B as quickly as you can. As opposed to free running, which is, you have fun and get creative with your movements. If you're jumping over something, you're jumping over with flair. Yeah. So I actually pulled up some videos in parkour, and then I was watching this video of a free running studio that was someplace in California. And the kids are looking over my shoulder and they're going, wow, that's cool. That's really great. Can we do that? Hell yeah, we can do that. Yeah. So then I did all the research and actually put together a kids parkour free running.
How old were they?
At that time,
teens or?
Probably 8, 10, 10, 12, somewhere in there.
That's like perfect for an 8 to 10-year-old, right?
Oh, it was great. And it was a really fun program to teach because it was so different. And of course, at the same time, it's non-competitive. It's get creative, move, all that. We would have the most unathletic people, start off really okay, go going over a barrier. I mean, everybody could get over the stuff if they wanted to, because I also had steps going up. Say it was a barrier as high as this table, or 3 feet, probably is the highest we went for. But 3 foot, then I'd have a couple steps on the way up, so you could walk your way up to the top, jump down and land, and I'd give them a 10-yard run up, and these unathletic kids would start, you run through it a couple of times and they're backing up more and more, and they're getting a bigger running start. And it's just going, suddenly you see the glee in their eyes to move and have fun with that, and to see kids move of their own accord and enjoy moving, because you put no pressure on them. There's nothing there, everything is good, everything's cool. Just all you have to do is get from one side of that obstacle to the other. You can go under it, over it, around it, I don't care. It's all fun. Good. Do it. And they would get more and more into it, and that's just the joy of moving.
So you kind of got into that once. Were you running any classes like that, or once your children saw this stuff online, were you like, I'm just going to get involved and learn as much as I can and try to help them?
Oh, just to get my kids in.
Is that kind of what?
That's the only reason I did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I found something my kids would latch on to, well, yeah. I mean, okay, I'll create a program for you guys.
Because I saw you did run programs like that, and I was wondering how that one came about.
That's exactly how it came about. I thought they stopped taking it at a certain point. I continued to teach. There was actually a homeschooling group that actually became their like phys ed.
Oh, nice.
They'd bring their kids in. 15 kids or so would come in and do an hour's worth of that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kids like always, whatever it is. I mean, they want to jump, climb things, jump rope, whatever. I don't know, just try it out. And then they try it, and then they're like obsessed with it for 20 minutes. And they come in, like there's kids that come in early now just to try to climb the rope that we have.
Oh yeah.
Like they'll come 10 minutes early. Can I go climb? I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't care how many times they try. We're going to do it in the workout anyway. But if they want to give it a go a couple times, it's awesome. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. And it's good to encourage it. And I think too now a lot more like all these different unique ideas are getting like females involved in stuff, and it's not like it was in college where that one woman who was on the Olympic team couldn't even use the weight room. Like there's like a whole movement now too where it's good, and it's great for young females to even be comfortable in a workout. So it's good. It's awesome. Another one I saw certification, CrossFit level 1. Yeah. Do you just want to learn about that? Sure.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm no longer. You're not certified anyway.
Just pay some.
No. They won't let you call it a certification. I was a CrossFit level 1 instructor.
Got it.
I can say that, but I couldn't say it was a certification.
Okay.
I took that, which happened to be the most expensive certification I've ever taken. Mm-hmm. I took that to see if it could be done well, and it was under the idea that we might bring in a CrossFit within our larger club. So I went to check it out and see what that was all about.
What'd you think at the end of it? Did you?
I thought the instructors were good. I thought there's no way people are. I mean, unless I thought there was no way that people in this 2-day workshop, you go through and do the physical aspect, and you pass this 50-question test, which is redundant, and it was like I'm still on the NSCA's personal training exam development committee, so I write the questions for the exam. And to read these questions, just kind of like these are the worst questions ever. To think that somebody could then get certified or get not certified, but become a CrossFit level 1 instructor, and then just pay the $3,000 and open their own box, and start training other people.
Teaching barbell snatches and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Highly technical.
So highly technical stuff you're not going to learn. I mean, technical stuff that can take you decades to perfect. So I think the training was good. I don't think it sets you up to be what they say you are. It doesn't set you up to be a good coach. Mm-hmm. The best CrossFit people I know are the ones who also have a USAW certification, maybe a CSCS as well. They're better rounded in their education, and then you go ahead and do these workouts, but you're coaching people, because you have come from a real expertise of the movements.
So I take it you did not bring that CrossFit in to the gym? Yeah. All right. I
mean, I'm USAW. I actually had 2 USAW certifications. I was a club coach, and if you guys don't know, that's an Olympic weightlifting certification. and the sports performance coach through USAW.
Awesome.
They actually stopped doing the club coach, so that technically that one's no longer on the board, but I'm still a weightlifting coach.
Yeah. Do you teach that stuff anymore?
Not anymore. It's a different clientele here where we are now. I mean, I'm fully capable of doing it, but it's just not our clientele.
Right. So, Fiegel, I like to open this up a little bit and sometimes come at you with some random questions. You got anything for us today?
Do have two. First one is, we live in a very temperate environment where winter, we have all 4 seasons come through. How do you deal with the change from summer to winter? Because it goes from being a very...
You mean emotionally?
Emotionally, motivationally, like when clients come in, and they are just, sometimes it happens in the winter that they could drop off, in terms of it gets very dark, it gets very cold, you don't want to go.
I mean, it's interesting, it does happen both ends of the spectrum. It starts to get dark, it starts to get cold, people are less likely to come out, and then it starts to get warm, and it starts to get sunny, and people are more likely to stay out. So getting them in at all seasons, it really is, it's understanding where they're coming from, so that people would take the summer off and, well, I'm active in the summer. So, well, but you're running, you're biking, you're gardening. It's either very repetitive, walking, running, biking, kinds of things, or it's, you're doing asymmetrical things like I'm gardening, which means you're always using one side more than the other.
Yeah.
And, so what you talk about with the clients and members is that it's really important. You can do less, but don't give up what you're doing. So you want to cut that back to a couple workouts a week. That's great. Full body, couple of workouts a week. That way you're not going to lose the strength that you have. You've gotten so far with this. Don't lose the strength that you have, and you're maintaining good ranges of motion and symmetrical work and all that stuff. So it's okay to do less, but don't stop. And that works both ends really too. I realize it's hard. Let's find ways of getting this in your life. Even if they're working on their own, I'm not a guy, you got to come work with me or us.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to do this. I don't care where you do it. You can do it 5 minutes at a shot. One of the things is that I don't have the time, I don't have whatever. I'm going, look, come in, we'll set up a program. You can do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, squeeze it in as you can. But it's important that you do this. And so you really have to stick to why it's so important and not to let up. And if they're going to leave, you might as well help them leave and continue, then sort of cut them off and go, okay, we can't help you. You're skipping and can't do. Well, no, let's find a way for you to continue this. And if I can't get up that early because it's dark or it's cold or I got a shovel or whatever else, okay, shoveling, make sure you switch sides. You can do a shoveling Tabata, go 20 seconds, but so it's essential you talk that through with them and make sure that, again, the educational aspect of making sure they understand the whys of doing this. You're going, you can't let up. You're going to lose ground. These are completely different activities. Say the summer thing, you're going, I'm gardening. Well, great, good for you. That's wonderful. That's activity, that's exercise. But you still want to get in it, even if you got 2.5 hours a week of good methodical strength training or something, where you get that range of motion and that symmetry.
And the last question is basically, what are the next steps for you moving forward in how you train individuals? What's it looking forward to?
Well, I think another part of this is you never stop learning. So I am constantly working on other stuff. The training, I go to anywhere from, it depends on the year. I present a lot at conferences, and so I can go from anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 conferences a year. And frankly, a lot of the conferences that I present at so I can go get the free education.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I just want to go to this conference.
That's kind of why I started this podcast, to be honest.
Is that
just
right?
to talk to people and try to learn as much, because you do some research and whatever. Yeah.
It's a great thing, and that should never stop. So where my training is going is probably not going to change a whole lot right now. As you may or may not know, the nutritional end of things is it's so all over the board. There's not a way to do anything, and I think that staying on top of the nutritional research is really important for, personal trainers as disseminators of information. We got to be able to talk what is current science in that area. because, you know, you hear about the keto diet, you hear about, you know, whatever else they're doing, and you just want to go, you know, no, here's why.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, you gotta be able to talk those points through. What's the most important thing, you know, nutritionally?
Can you answer that actually? Like, let's just say somebody is watching this and they're like, oh, I hope at some point they're going to talk about, you know, the best way to go about, you know, my diet.
Well, you know, I can't remember who it was. Whether it was Gary Gray or Gray Cook. It's one of the Grays. One of those.
And they both do the similar style of work. So
well, I know, which is
book and you're like, what?
But Gary Gray, older school. So a lot of the stuff came up through the Gary Gray, and I can't remember whether it was him. It was probably Gary Gray that called. We are not diagnosticians. We are suspecticians. First off, we can suspect what's going on, but we never diagnose. The other thing is, and this might be Gray Cook, was talked about tweakology, and my take on nutrition is really not to put them on a diet, because that's not my realm. That's not what I do. I'm a nutritional coach. I mean, I'm a certified nutritional specialist, but I believe in coaching them, not giving them a diet.
Yeah.
So where you start off in trying to eat well is, what are you doing currently? You know, you know, you may be doing 95% of it correct, and maybe just a little bit has to be tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you do it, it's not a big thing. It's not go on a diet. It is, okay, can I, you know, if I'm eating tortilla chips, can I go baked tortilla chips? You know, less calories for that. Can I, if I'm eating, you know, bread, can I move away from the Wonder Bread and move into the like hearty, greeny stuff?
Yeah.
Can I make better choices of what I'm currently doing? You know, those are the tweaks that you do. And you know, it's like going from, the tweaking is like going from whole milk to skim milk, you know, and I'm a non-fat milk drinker, but you don't say just go from whole milk to skim milk, because it's like, oh, it's like water.
Keto,
you know, it's
guys.
like, ooh,
Keto people are shaking their head right now, man.
yeah, and let them shake their heads. You know, okay, here's my quick take on skim milk. It's like the perfect food, you know, but you go from whole milk to 2%. You get used to 2%. You go from 2%, you go to 1.5%. You get used to that. You go to 1%. So you're just tweaking that a little bit to make the change easy and doable and not a hardship. You know, and bit by bit you end up, okay, I'm doing the skim milk. You know, and in the non-fat dairy in general, you're taking away the fat, which in a huge part of that is the calories. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's a huge part of where the calories come from, the amount of fat that's in there. So you're lessening the calories, and if you can do that, then you can bring your caloric levels in line a little bit more quickly and not lose the protein aspect.
Even small amounts of calorie reduction, whether it is 50 to 150 grams a day, is kind of a game changer.
Sure.
Over the long haul. So,
and again, those little things. It doesn't have to be. I mean, again, we're not trying to lose this by tomorrow. Yeah. We're looking long term. This is like people. If I'm not losing, you know, they watch The Biggest Loser, and if I'm not losing 20 pounds in a week, I'm failing. If you lose a half pound a week, you're still losing. What is it? 26 pounds, and right, half of the 52.
That's a lot. If you could do that in a year.
26 pounds. I mean, how many people have tried and not lost that and kept it off? They keep trying for that fast lose, and here's one you can sustain.
Yeah.
Half pound a week.
So it comes down to adherence, and whatever tweak that you're making, they need to be able to do it.
Right.
And I talked to the sports nutritionist.
And not be so dramatic that you feel like it's a hardship.
Yeah. She was like working with a college wrestler, and what vegetables do you eat? Green beans. That was it. Yep. So she's like, you're going to be eating a lot of green beans then, because you're going to get vegetables at these meals, and it's just going to have to be that. Yep. Because she didn't want to, you know, make them go eat broccoli and all the other stuff, because they weren't going to do it.
I was talking to this one guy who's training. He was going to this nutritionist, which was just simply somebody giving him nutritional information, not particularly qualified.
Yeah.
But her go-to thing was, everybody eats broccoli. And he goes, I hate broccoli.
Yeah.
They go, well, don't eat broccoli.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to eat anything that doesn't feel right or you don't like. But you're looking to make things better, and those are the tweaks. Yeah. So if you rather than go on a diet, you know, start tweaking things toward a healthier version.
Perfect. Yeah. new projects too. You're always kind of working on some new stuff. You got this going on. I saw potentially some online training going.
Yes,
That's
I'm just a girl who can't say no.
Yeah.
Things come up, and I'm constantly looking for the next medium, I guess. I mean, certainly, the online training is a big deal in the aspect of, a lot of people are swearing, oh, that's online training. I've never been as on board with it, but I think it can be done well, and so I'm getting into the point where I want to do some online training and see how that works. And I tend to, the problem ethically for me is you don't know the form that they have. So you really have to, at least talk about some Skyping and some being able to watch their form and say, okay, you're good to go, and do these on their own. And then you can work with programs beyond that. But some online training. I'm getting into podcasting as well. I have 3 in my head. I mean, I have one that is Men's Fitness After 50.
Cool.
One for the business of personal training, which I'm actually going to do with Robert Linkle. I don't know if you've Robert.
I just know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he's another business guy, but also works with the older adults. And then I'm going to do one which is just like the people I meet, which will be a lot of business people around town. That's
awesome. That'd be awesome for Easton.
Yeah. Well, so those are side projects.
I did one of those with a guy, and I'm like, the guy I work with, we went to this guy's farm. He's, did you ever get the kombucha down here at the farmer's market?
Mm-hmm.
Him, Don. Okay. Yeah, it was Don's. We went out to his farm, and he told us about the crazy drink that he has and how he makes it. And we looked at all the bacteria and the scobies and things that he has. So I was like, this is cool. I think taking it on the road and like, go talk to some business owners in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And,
I think there are a lot of stories out there. I mean, I'm currently the president of the Business Association here. And so I have a lot of exposure to new businesses coming in, and I'll talk to these people and just going, well, that's a cool story. And just going, really, I want to get into an interview with them.
I even think too, I think it was that guy, Mike Rowe, who does Dirty Jobs. I don't know, somebody had one night, it was like drinking with friends. So he would go out and meet with people and have like, drink wine with, I don't know what he would do, but they would just sit around, drink and talk about whatever they felt like. And like that was an idea. And so anyway, that's cool. That'd be awesome.
And then,
are you going to do all 3, or you're trying to cut it down and just try to figure out one to do?
I'm going to try.
You're going to do
3.
You're going to do them all, yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm
They
actually
all kind of work together. I feel like too, because
sort of. I mean, and not to mention, the more you do, the better you get at it, right? I mean, you do 18, 19. What is this? Is 18? Starting to feel a little bit more.
This is a good one, yeah.
Number 18. I had to trim this way back. Cut this one down. I'm also. I mean, I wrote the book, The Business of Personal Training, but with Robert Linkle, we're actually writing an appendix to the personal trainer, the essentials of personal training for the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So we're going to be writing that coming up soon. And the first time to have that business section in that textbook. So doing that and a couple other writing projects.
Are you, where are you going to be presenting anytime soon?
I did 2 conferences early this year, and that's all I got lined up this year. I'll be going to the National Strength and Conditioning Association National Conference.
DC one?
Yeah.
I saw that's coming up, right? July?
You get to drive. Yeah, I don't have to fly. Yeah, it's in July. So it's an easy one.
I just got, that's packed with people.
Oh, yeah.
The roster. I'm like, holy crap. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It's always good. I mean, and the NSCA I've been with for so long that it's old home day.
Yeah.
Just see a lot of friends.
Cool.
And the networking is always a good thing in general.
Well, that network that you do have is going to help, I think, with the podcast too, and I think it'll probably take off for you pretty quick because you seem to have a large network of people that you met over the years,
Yeah, and that's the fun of it all. I mean, truly, in these, for trainers in general too, if you're listening, going to the conferences, there was a big debate of the NSCA is actually the personal training conference is virtual this year, which I don't love. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I can get on the internet, and the benefit for conferences for me is, yes, you're in there at live sessions. You can ask your questions. Sometimes you can do it virtually too, but you can ask your questions of the presenters. But then it's the discussions afterwards with other people, and what if we did this, and what are you guys doing? And it's the side conversations that make those conferences so worth going to. I mean, we met at the New Jersey one, didn't we?
It was.
Was it the?
No, it was like William. Man, near Hirsch.
Was it
Harrisburg or something?
David Bricks?
Brixius, whatever his name is. Yeah, that's where it was. You presented there, group. I think it was, creating a group.
Me?
You did the hands-on one.
I did, yeah, the boot camp.
Yeah, boot camp. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I stole some of those ideas too, which was nice.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Well, none of my ideas are original. They're still from
So it's
somebody
like
else.
that quote that I feel like we should throw in here then. So hey, anything else? You got any questions? You good?
When did you get into this? Just how long have you been doing
Went to
this?
college, 10 years probably.
Okay.
So I went to Bloomsburg, which is a state school in Pennsylvania here. Was in the business program, was like good grades, bad grades, good grades, bad grades. Wasn't really interested, just probably too many distractions. So I ended up leaving school. Took a year off trying to figure out what's going on, early 20s maybe. So got into a sport management program and with kind of a focus in health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, then I started personal training too. So I worked at an LA Fitness in Easton for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I was coaching wrestling initially for a year, and then just got into coaching football at a small school in Hellertown. So then I wanted to ACSM was my first certification, the personal training one.
It was actually ACSM, back then they didn't have the personal training one back in my day, 100 years ago. But the health and fitness
Professional?
instructor back then, which then changed to specialist, which then changed to certified exercise physiologist.
Wow.
Same certification, changed 3 names.
Yeah.
But yeah, so ACSM was my first
Did
one as
that.
well.
I knew it was going to expire. I don't know. It might have been 3 years. So at that time, I was like, I'm not going to do anything for ACSM. I'm going to just study and get the CSCS. So I didn't even think I was going to continue the ACSM. I was going to get certified in the CSCS in like 2 years. So
Yeah.
that was going to be the route I was going to go moving forward, just because of coaching and
Right.
stuff like that. So everything that I was interested in was just geared towards kind of performance. So
Mhm.
so then that stuff kind of went into who I was working with too. And I mean, and then Dan John's books, obviously. I mean, I read Easy Strength.
Actually,
whatever, 8 years ago.
I've been to a presentation with Dan John, but I've never read his books.
They're awesome. I mean, for me, they were anyway. Super simplified and like you're gonna push, pull, squat, hinge, carry some stuff around,
Yeah,
get off the ground,
it's kind of that.
get up and get
Yeah.
down a bunch.
Right.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
So Easy Strength was a big one too, in the sense that it was. It's gonna sound almost like a lazy approach, but do the least amount of work to get the most amount of gains, because anything beyond that, you're just kind of wasting energy. So, go in there, do your work.
It's efficiency.
It is. Well, which is almost counterintuitive sometimes. Like I was saying with the wrestlers and other areas that I've worked with in the past, it was always just go, go, go. And it wasn't ever like, let's back this thing down. You're good enough for today. You could go home. So then those books kind of changed. That book for sure did Easy Strength, which was awesome. Him and Pavel Satsulain, yeah, those two guys wrote that one. That one was a game changer. But then also too, back then, I remember reading the core performance books that Mark Verstegen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What else? Probably a Todd Durkin book at the time. He had like the Impact Body Plan. I don't know. This was like, those were some of the first books that I read, I remember. So yeah, and then going into that, coaching football, going to clinics, going to the football coaching clinics and hearing college strength coaches talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then just, who knows, went to a private gym then and worked at the LA Fitness at the same time. Then I worked at another gym. I was living in Easton, driving to Allentown, coaching in Hellertown, driving back to Easton to work again. They're 13 to 15 hour days. It just wore me out. I mean, just felt awful.
So is that why you opened your own?
Yeah, like maybe a little over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Guy that was a coach of mine in wrestling. He helped me out a lot. He was right out of college. We were around the same weight class. He was almost an All-American in college, Division I wrestler. He would come, work out. We had a gym in my parents' house in the basement. Family friend. He would come over. Me and a couple other of my friends would lift before school. He would work with me. He's like, "Hey, I got this building." The facility at the time. Well, you know what? It's not a great looking space to begin with. But when I went in there, it was totally trash. So it's like a early 1900s style corner store. The road is called Old Philadelphia Pike. So the road used to run from Bethlehem to Philadelphia. I don't know if it brought people in for the Bethlehem Steel at the time, but it's like a corner store. There's like hooks hanging from the ceiling still. There was a smoke room.
Meat hooks?
Meat hooks, it looks like. That's what I'm thinking.
Because you can threaten your clients and go, I'm going to set you right up there.
Yeah. So it's like 1,500 square foot. I wanted to get out of working for other people, to be honest. I guess that wasn't fitting my personality too well. I don't know.
Right.
Just kind of wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to set my own schedule, like the same type of schedule you have here.
Right.
It's by appointment only. I don't have open gym hours. I get to go home in the middle of the day if I want for 4 or 5 hours and then come back at night, which I don't mind.
Well, we have a kid now, so
Yeah.
that's a nice thing.
It is. It definitely is. To work from 9 to 5 or whatever some people work and not be able to be home, and you get home and your child's going to bed or something, that'd be very difficult. I wouldn't feel too good about it. So, so I'm doing that now. So that was kind of the transition. I mean, personal trainer, was coaching, NSCA, trying to read as much stuff as possible. Trying to think of some other things I'm getting into now. A lot of youth training.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Boyle,
Right,
a lot of his stuff. Trying to do a little bit more camps, and also
Mike Boyle's interesting too, because he's pretty much a little on Dan John kind of thing, is also very simple.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense, don't do it.
right.
He was like with power cleans. He was like, hang cleans, do hang cleans.
Right.
You never have to come off the ground.
Exactly.
Just what
He
makes
doesn't
sense
even
for
do
the
squats.
athlete.
He doesn't do a bilateral squat.
Mhm.
They do all single unilateral work.
Right, sure.
He went from back squats to front squats, and then because I guess maybe his back injuries or ego might have got him out of the back squat game.
Right.
People start front squat, nobody's getting hurt, fine. But then he even just went to, I think you could overload one leg. Say you get 200 pounds on one leg, 200 pounds on the other leg.
Right.
That's your 400 total pounds. Say, whereas on the squat you might only be able to do 305. So he calls it like
Sure.
a bilateral deficit. He feels like each limb could get more work, unilateral and
Yeah.
injury prevention, all that stuff. So like that stuff's eye-opening to me. And those are like the things that, you go to a conference and pick up one thing.
Right.
Like that was one of those things that kind of changed
Yeah.
the way I wanted to train people. I mean, we still front squat and stuff just because I like it. If I'm working with like an athlete,
Yeah.
because we do hang cleans and I want them to be strong in that position. But so, and also female athletes. I kind of told you before. I kind of stumbled into that 2 years ago. I started camps for. I'm like, girls are getting hurt. I'm coaching football. I'm seeing all these girls with big knee braces on.
Yeah.
They're the ones in the training room all the time. So I'm like, nobody's coaching these girls. Nobody.
And it's so necessary too. My wife and I went to the conference, and they had a knee specialist pointing out in videos and talking about female athletes.
Yeah.
And just watching women jump, like the collegiate high-end volleyball players and all that stuff, and the valgus shift when they landed. And it says there's an injury waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And through the research he was doing, it says almost exactly, if they blow their ACL, then 20 years later they'll need a knee replacement. And that's pretty much where his...
So that's a selling point there.
Well, you sit there and you go, okay,
everybody.
you're 18, 19 years old. By before you're 40, you're going to need a knee replacement.
I'm jotting this man down. Who is this individual?
Oh,
Do you remember?
I can't remember who
All
it
right.
was. It was years back, but I mean, it was dramatic.
All right.
Kind of going, oof, yeah, it is a selling point, and even just
20 years, yeah. You're 16.
60, yeah,
Before
exactly.
the age of 40.
If you're in high school and you're pulling your ACL, just think about
It's
it.
happening
Yeah,
often. The incidence rate is something crazy, like 7 to 9 times more likely than their male counterpart.
well, the Q angle's stronger, anyway, when they mature,
Yeah.
and then you get that much more of a valgus
Angle,
shift.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which that stuff you obviously can't. The injuries are still going to happen, but if you could kind of build a little strength, you could kind of cue them on how to move.
Right.
I felt like that was important. So I started these camps for like 7 to 13-year-old girls, and like 40 plus come every year,
Yep,
which
great.
is cool. Yeah, and it's only like, it's kind of just one school district, It just
Yeah.
people that I know in that community, and then some, 10, maybe 10 from outside of that. But so I mean, there's even some room for growth there. But that's kind of. And anyway, I worked with 2 high school lacrosse teams randomly this year. A lot of softball players came in leading up to their season. Lacrosse, field hockey. I don't know. It's kind of I think the female athlete is. They obviously have the injury thing too, but they work. I don't know what it is, but they're there to learn a little bit, not just trying to.
Yeah.
Back squat as much weight as possible.
Right, sure.
They
Yeah.
want a good explanation, and they're willing to slow play it, which I do with everybody anyway, and they're not going to fight you on, slow cooking it. And
Yeah.
let's just take this. They'll tell you, like, I'm not comfortable with that. Whereas a guy might just be like, nah, throw it on.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of like that. Or it just fits my
Do you know John
personality
Graham?
too.
Do you know John Graham?
Yes. No, I know who he is.
Okay.
I don't know him too
I was
well.
gonna say,
but-
you should talk to John, because he's doing a lot of the sports teams around here too.
Yes, yeah.
And he's-
St. Luke's, right?
Right.
Do you cross paths with him often?
We stay in touch.
Yeah. No, he's
We
kind
go
of like,
back
he's been
long.
presenting for a while too, right? I mean, he's been on the-
Yeah. We've known each other for decades,
Yeah.
way back from the NSCA.
So we got the projects done. Uh-oh.
I have one more late
Yeah,
question.
yeah, late addition.
Yep, it's for both of you actually. That there are obviously substantial links between mental health and physical health. When someone comes in and they're struggling on one of the end of the spectrum or another, what would the advice that you would give up front?
Let me clarify, or get you to clarify.
Yeah.
You're saying mental health issues. You're talking about depression. You're talking about what are you talking about?
The overall spectrum. So it could be anything from mental disorders and the diseases that are associated with it, but also just good self-care. Anything from the standpoint of, are you focusing on your family? Are you working too hard at your professional job? That kind of those kind of
Work-life
things.
balance.
Yeah, work-life
that kind of stuff.
How would you? What type of advice would you give for them getting to that balance between their own mental and physical health?
The work-life balance is as people talk about fitting fitness in, I got to, my family, my work, they always make time for their work because, the boss needs me to stay an extra hour, I got to do this extra thing. They always find time to do that, but they don't find time either for the family or for exercise. And when they're struggling with the time, it's about really engaging them with okay, well, what minimal can I do with you, to get the benefits of doing that with minimal time, and how do we fit that in? As far as if I was as a life coach, if you're doing that whole end of the thing, it's not. You got to get them to see priorities, and sometimes it's like, okay, what would you say to a friend who's doing this? Because you're harsher on yourself, and you don't see it on yourself as much. But if we've had clients that talk badly about themselves, a lot of down self-talk, and Heather particularly is good with this, picking that up, and she'll just go, what would you say to your friend if your friend said that?
Yeah.
Well, I tell them to, lighten up or take what's your priority here, and so you can have that discussion with them. We're going to go kick it back to you for a second here, but as far as mental disorders, depression is one thing. I mean, the American Psychiatric Association came out. I think it's American Psychiatric. Anyway, psychology.
APA, I feel like is right.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it is.
They came out years ago, and they went head to head with Zoloft. I think it was that exercise versus Zoloft, and that exercise was served equally as an antidepressant as Zoloft did, and actually it was better in the long run because the self-efficacy of doing it yourself versus being drugged to feel that way, they actually felt better and could sustain it longer when it was exercise. So, exercise is an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, treatment in itself. As far as the others, you work, would I work with somebody with other mental disorders? It really depends on what they are. Actually, it can help people with Alzheimer's. It can help anybody. Is that your gig to be able to supervise them with them, or are you going to work with somebody who's their caretaker while you're doing that? If you can, it's a great thing. They certainly benefit from it, but it may not necessarily be your forte, and you would want to have the caretaker there as well. Crystal,
you've seen it too, in the sense that like you've had somebody come in the gym and they're down in the dumps, and it's like as long as they show up, they're going to leave there in a better mood.
Oh, absolutely.
It happens like 100% of the time. So I think too, it's like you're going to have to encourage, and I don't think you come straight at the individual in the sense of like, get your shoes on, let's get to the gym now, but you just want to try to do whatever to kind of encourage them, because at the end of that hour or whatever session they do, they're going to be feeling a little bit better about themselves. So.
Sometimes just getting them to acknowledge that. How do you feel when you came in? I'm just a drag, and I don't.
You let them know when they
rough
leave.
day. We have some people right now who are, have some family issues are going on, and you're really struggling with that whole work-life balance and all that everything. And you encourage them when they come in. Good for you coming in. And then you talk to them afterwards, and you go, "How do you feel now?"
Yeah.
But to ask them that question and get them to acknowledge, "I feel so much better."
I agree there.
Is a driver to go for them next time, because they'll remember, "I feel better afterwards."
And I'm always just. I think you just let them know you're happy too. Like, I'm happy you came in today.
Oh yeah.
You're feeling better, good.
Always glad
to stuff like that. Because that's.
Know your name. Glad. Yeah. Always glad they came. A little cheers.
I think just kind of having their back always, and if there is a day too that they're a little bit down in the dumps, you don't want to harp on them either, and just kind of understand and hopefully get them in the next day or whatever it is. So, that's how I navigated it.
And
anyway.
you can, and at the same time, you can it is that they're there. You know, maybe they don't have the best workout ever, but they're doing it. They're getting, you know, doing something is always better than nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and the likelihood of them feeling better is extremely high, you know, to doing something. So yay for them. And yeah, I encourage them before and thank them for coming in. And then afterwards, just double checking and get that affirmation that, yes, I feel better.
I feel like we could tie in this Benjamin Franklin quote finally.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I told him, I got this from
He's
one of
been
his
hanging on to
articles.
this, yeah.
I've been wanting to get this in somehow, some way. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think even with the mental health state, physical state, mental state, I mean,
Sure.
And just being proactive with it and trying to just move your body, I think it's good for both.
Well,
both ends of the spectrum.
and I think that came out of, was that the don't dig your wellness before?
I think so.
Okay, so the reason that the quote came up for me was really, people tend to wait until they are sick, wait
Yeah.
until they are broken to prepare for it. You know, and it's the hindsight. You sit there and go, I should have started earlier. Well, you know, ounce of prevention. Start training now, and you'll have less issues later on.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's tough for people to wrap their mind around it, because it's you know, it's the same reason that people still smoke, as they don't really think it'll catch up with them, but everything catches up.
Yeah.
You know, it all catches up with you. And the same thing with you know, don't wait till you're sick. Don't wait till you're hurting or unable to do something, unable to get off the floor. Start either maintaining or gain what you need now, and then maintain it, you know, as you go through the years.
Awesome, man.
Anyway.
I think that's a perfect conclusion.
Excellent.
Mark, thank you.
Yeah.
This is one of
My pleasure.
This is one of the best ones we did, man. Thank you.
Okay.
Mark Nutting, guys, Jiva Fitness here in Easton, guys. Hope you have a good day.
Thanks for having me.